Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to be installing Kali Linux on our virtualization software, more specifically VMware. Alright, now depending on the version that you downloaded and installed, whether you chose to go with the free version or the paid version, it'll work exactly the same. And if you're using VirtualBox, the installation process is pretty much the same thing. And we're going to be using VMware for the entirety of the course now. Or if you've chosen to install Kali Linux on your physical machine, that will work as well. All right, so let's get started, and I'll guide you through the installation steps with VMware. All right, so I'm going to be using VMware Workstation Player because that's what I would assume most of you have chosen. If you're using the professional version, as I do have installed right here, the installation process is pretty much the same. So let's get started. Open up your Workstation Player. All right, and it'll take a few seconds. There we are. And I already have created a virtual machine, but don't worry about that. Yours will be empty here. And all we have to do to create a new virtual machine is just click on create a new virtual machine. All right, really simple. There we are. And now it's going to ask you to select your installer disk image or your ISO file that we downloaded in the previous video where we were downloading Kali Linux. So I hope you guys have got the file. So just make sure you select installer disk image file, and you want to specify where that file is saved. I saved mine on my desktop. So I'm just going to go to the folder and click on it. There we are. So make sure you select the ISO that you downloaded that is appropriate depending on the system or your computer's architecture. All right. So I'm going to hit open. And it's going to give you this little error here saying could not detect which operating system is in the disk image. Don't worry about that. Hit on next. Is in the disk image. Don't worry about that. Hit on next. And now you want to specify the guest operating system. All right. So the guest operating system is simply what operating system this is and the kernel that it is running. All right. So make sure you select Linux because Kali Linux is based off Linux. And now for the version, I want you to select you want to go ahead and select version 3 or later. All right. So Linux version 3 or later. If you're running a 64-bit computer, make sure you select the one without 64-bit. If you're running a 64-bit computer, then you want to select the one that says 64-bit. And if you have the 32-bit, make sure you select the one that is simply plain and that does not contain a 64-bit specification. All right. So I have the 64-bit ISO and my computer is 64-bit. So I'm just going to click on that and hit next. And now it's going to ask you to give your virtual machine a name. So I'm going to call mine Kali Linux. I'm going to call it Kali Linux Mastering Ethical Hacking. All right. I'm just going to give it any name. I'm giving it a specific name, but you guys can call it whatever you want. And now it's going to ask you to specify your storage location for the virtual machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to browse, and you can store it wherever you feel is comfortable. I have an OS folder right here. So I'm just going to open it up, and I'm going to create a new folder in there, and I'm just going to call it Kali Linux VMware. I'm just going to call it Kali Linux hacking. All right, hacking. Really simple, and I'm going to save it in that folder. I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to save my virtual machine in there. Again, you can specify whatever storage location you feel is comfortable. I'm going to hit next, and now it's going to ask me to specify the disk capacity that I want my virtual disk or my virtual hard drive to be in. I like selecting mine as 20 gigabytes. If you're a beginner to this, I would recommend just using 20 gigabytes. But if you have if your computer does not have a lot of storage to spare, 10 gigabytes would work okay. But I would recommend 20 gigabytes because we're going to be installing a few files here and there, and it may eat up quite a bit of space. All right. Now, the option that is going to specify here as well is whether or not you want to store your virtual disk as a single file, or whether or not you want to split it into multiple files. Make sure you select store it as a single disk, as a single disk file, and that's because it'll make your virtual machine a whole lot faster, and you won't run into any lags or slowdowns. All right. So I'm going to hit next now, and we can customize the hardware. And this is very dependent on what computer you're running and what you like to have your system and how you want it customized in terms of its hardware. Now, for the memory, this is just simply, this is your RAM and how much RAM you want to specify to your virtual machine. Now, I have a 8 gigabytes of RAM installed on my computer. And what I would recommend for Kali Linux for this course is 1 gigabyte. If you have more to spare, you can use it very, very liberally, and also, go up to 2 or 4 gigabytes. If your computer is running 2 gigabytes of RAM, you can also use the recommended, which is 768, or take it down to 512. But if you do that, your system will be really, really slow. So I recommend about 1 gigabyte. That works great for me. Next, in terms of processors, again, this is highly dependent on what you have running on in your system. For example, I have a quad-core CPU, which means it has 4 processor cores, and that means I can specify up to 4, or for this matter, I like to use about 2. If you have a dual-core CPU or a processor, make sure you select 1, because it's always good to keep a balance between your host operating system and your guest operating system. All right. Now we want to move on to the network adapter, and this is very, very important. I need to just show you this. We're going to be working with a few other virtual machines, and what I would recommend is to bridge I want you to bridge your connection directly to your physical adapter, your physical network adapter, whether you're running Wi-Fi or Ethernet. So just click on bridge, and I want you to click on replicate physical network connection state. Now, what this means is that you will be able to communicate with other computers on your network, and it will be based on your network as a valid computer, and they'll be given an IP address to match that. All right. The next thing is your display, which is again very dependent on you. Now, I have a dedicated graphics card, so I'm going to make sure I hit accelerate 3D graphics. And again, if you do not have a dedicated graphics card, you can leave that unchecked. I like having it because it makes Kali Linux a whole lot smoother in its interface. All right. Now, as for the graphics memory, depending on how much memory you have dedicated to your system, I have about 2 gigabytes. So it recommends about 768 megabytes, and I'll leave it at that. You can specify what is comfortable for you from 32 megabytes to about 2 gigabytes. I'm just going to go with the recommended, and I'm going to hit close. And there we are. We want to hit finish, and we're ready to install Kali Linux. All right. So make sure you click on your virtual machine now, and the one that we created, and just hit play virtual machine, and it's going to start up, and give it a few seconds. Shouldn't take too much time at all. There we are. The VMware BIOS has started up, and it's going to lead you to this installation screen. All right, so it's going to ask you to select an option here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go for the graphical install. I'm going to hit on that, and now it's going to start up the setup, and it's going to start loading everything up. So give this a few seconds, as you can see here. Don't worry if it gives you a few errors here. It should start up anyway. All right, there we are. So now it's going to ask you to select your language. All right, so welcome to Kali Linux, and you can go ahead and select the language that you wish to use. I'm going to be using English, and I'm going to hit OK. And now you want to select your version of English, and again, depending on your location or the country or territory in which you live, I'm just going to hit United States and hit continue. Now you want to configure the keyboard. This is very, very important. A lot of people make mistakes here. Make sure you select the keyboard layout that you are used to. So I'm used to the American English keyboard format or the layout. So I'm going to hit continue. Now it's going to scan for all the files, and it's going to load all the files onto your virtual disk image for installation. So give that a few seconds as well. Overall, the installation shouldn't take too much time at all. Alright, so once it has loaded all the files, it's going to ask you to configure your network, and this is very, very important. It's going to ask you for a host name. Alright, a host name is essentially, this is going to be the name of your system or your computer on your network, and this would be a very good way of identifying your computers. For example, if you had a network of computers, whether you're running this at home, on your home network, or you're running this in your office, essentially this will be a unique identifier for you to uniquely identify your virtual machine. So I have two Kali workstations on my network. So I'm just going to call this Kali 2. All right. And I'm going to hit continue. If you don't have any other computer running Kali Linux, you can just leave it as the default, which is Kali. I'm going to hit continue. Now for the domain name, you can specify a domain name if you're running this on your school network or your home or your company network. This is really dependent on you, but if you're running this on your home network, you can just go ahead and hit continue. You don't need to do that. All right. So now it's going to ask you for your users and your passwords. All right. So this is setting up your users and passwords. The first thing it's going to ask you is for your root password. This is very important. Your root password is essentially going to give you or will be used to grant you administrative privileges or give you the super user mode in the Linux operating system. So it's very important that you remember this password. So I'm going to create the password here. All right, and I'm going to repeat it again. You can give it as anything that you feel is necessary. You can give a very secure system if that's what you require. Or you can just give it some very normal password. It really doesn't matter because this is a virtual lab and there'll be not a lot of important stuff saved. But it's very important that you remember the password that you're using. All right, I'm going to hit continue. And now it's going to ask you to configure your clock. All right, now this is very simple. Depending on the area that you live in, you want to just select your time zone. So I'm just going to select Eastern. You can go with whatever you want. It really doesn't matter for me. I'm just going to Eastern. I'm going to hit continue. And now it's going to detect your disk and open the partitioner that comes inbuilt with Kali Linux. All right. So this is very important now. So it's going to ask you now to select the disk in which you want to install Kali Linux. And so what I would recommend is just go for guided, use the entire disk. Just hit continue. And it's going to show you the virtual disk that we created. In my case, it is the 21.5 gigabytes VMware virtual disk. So I'm going to hit that, and it's going to prompt me to confirm how I want my disk partitioned. All right. So Linux, the Linux installation has 3 partitions. It saves the system files in the home, var, and temp partitions. So I would recommend as a beginner to save everything in one partition. All right. As it says over here, recommended for new users. And that's because you do not have to tinker around with the partitions and select specific swap space, etc., etc. So just hit continue. And you want to hit finish partitioning and write changes to disk. Hit continue. And it's going to ask you to confirm whether you want to write changes to the disk. Just hit yes and hit continue. And it should start partitioning the disk. And once it's done, it should start installing the system. Now this it could take a while depending on the on your hard drive on your computer, or if you have an SSD running on your computer, it could go a whole lot faster. So I'll get back to you when the installation is done. So I'll see you then. All right. So once the installation is complete, it's going to ask you to configure the package manager. All right. And it's going to ask you to select whether or not you want to select a network mirror that can be used to download additional software and updates. All right. So I don't want to use a network mirror, and I'm going to continue. All right. And it's going to get started to configure the package manager. So give it a few seconds as well. Shouldn't take too much time at all. All right, it's going to start installing the Grub bootloader, and essentially what this is, it's a bootloader that is used to start up Kali Linux. All right, so that's just in case you're wondering what it is and how it affects the installation. All right, now it's going to ask you whether or not you want to install the Grub bootloader on your hard disk, and yes, we do. The reason being is if you install it on another hard drive, you had to specify that hard drive to get booted up first. And that really deals with installing it on a physical drive. But for the purpose of this video, just make sure you hit yes and hit continue. And it's going to ask you to select the storage device. Now we only created one virtual disk. So we're going to select the device and the storage device A and hit continue. And it's going to install the Grub bootloader. And again, just give it a few seconds. It shouldn't take too much time at all. There we are. And now it's going to finish the installation. It's going to set up the clock and just run any of the other update services that are required for the installation. So I'll get back to you when it's done. Alright, so once the installation is complete, it's gonna ask you to hit continue to complete the installation, and now it's gonna get rid of the packages, the installation packages that were left over during the installation, and just give it a few seconds. There we are, and once it's done, it's going to automatically reboot, and it'll reboot you directly into Kali Linux. So just give it a few seconds. This whole process shouldn't take any more than 20 minutes along with the installation of the files on your virtual disk image. Again, as I said, it really depends on on your computer and the system that you're trying to do this on, and whether or not your disk is a fast hard drive or you're using an SSD. So that is really dependent on what system you're running. So just let it get rid of the live packages, and I'll get back to you when it's ready. Alright, so once it's done, it's going to start up, and this is the grub bootloader, and it's going to start Kali Linux up. Once it restarts, there we are. And the system is starting up now. So just give it a few seconds to load everything up, and it should give us the login screen where I'll give you the instructions as to what to use for the username, and obviously the password that you set, which was the root password, which will be the default password because we're going to be logging in using the root account. That's because we didn't create any user. Alright, which I'll also be showing you how to do. So there we are, the system is started up, and we can already see that we can use the Kali Linux pointer. So again, it's just a matter of time before it starts up. There we are, and here we have Kali Linux. So hopefully we can log in. So the username that you want to use is going to be root, and the password is going to be the password that we set during the installation. So enter that and hit enter, and there we are. It's going to start Kali Linux up. Give it a few seconds to start up the desktop environment. It should be up anytime now. And in the next videos, we're going to be looking at how to customize Kali Linux, making sure it's working all right, and it works to your advantage rather than working against you. And I'm just going to show you how to get comfortable with Kali Linux. All right. So again, the first startup shouldn't take too much time, and this is going to be this slow procedure is going to happen only once, and that's because it's starting up for the first time. It's just configuring everything. So just have a bit of patience, and it should start up. All right. Once it's started up, welcome to Kali Linux. And as you can see, don't worry if the screen resolution is very, very slow. It's really simple to sort that out. And that's what we'll be looking at in the next video. We'll be customizing Kali Linux and adding users, etc., etc. So I'll be seeing you in the next video.